60 centimeter. The branches are soft, thin, and brownish in color. The leaves are juicy reddish when fresh, turning greenish yellow with age. They are about 10 centimeter in length and 5 centimeter in breadth, with reband serrated margins. The central rib is prominent, particularly at the base of the leaf. Other descriptions of the cat tree describe it as small, with pale leaves and never bearing flowers or seeds. The variety Clostridia Badvis Richard mentioned earlier has a different shape of flowers, larger and longer. Anatomical study. The first anatomical description of the leaf was given by Cullen on 1893, and apart from the inadequate description of the fibers, it is substantially correct. Panot, 1943-44, gives only a brief and incomplete description in which he refers to the crystals of calcium oxalate as twin crystals. The British Pharmaceutical Codex, 1949, includes a short account of the leaf as an adulterant or substitute for tea. The crystals of calcium oxalate are correctly described, though no sizes are given, and reference is also made to tanniferous cells. Paris, 1958, gives a very brief description of the features of the powdered leaf with some drawing, but totally inadequate to be of great help in identifying the powdered leaf with any certainty. I'm going to be closer to the camera to show you better. This is cross-section for the leaf through an open fruit, and the other one cross-section through an open fruit, and down below an open fruit with one of the valves removed, showing the seed. Materials. The samples of cat used in this investigation were obtained as follows. A sample purchased in Bazaar in Aden in October 1959 by Mrs. V. Stewart and flown to England the same day. B. A sample collected in January 1960 from cultivated plants of Catha edulis verticale in Ethiopia by J. Donor ESQ. Both samples were presented to the Pharmacognosy Museum of the Chelsea School of Pharmacy. Microscopical features. The slender twigs have from 10 to 15 leaves arranged in opposite pairs with occasional displacement at the base of the stem, so that the lower leaves may appear to be arranged alternately. The leaves are simple and measure 4 to 11 centimeter long and 1.8 to 5 centimeter wide. At the widest part, they have short, round petioles, 3 to 7 millimeter long. In a fresh condition, the leaves are bright green and the surfaces are glossy. When dry, the leaves are paler, the color of both surfaces being similar. The lamina is glabrous and slightly acuminate, apex and an acute symmetrical base. With the exception of a small portion near the base, which is entire, the margin is serrate The upper surface shows distinct pinnate venation, but this is more marked on the lower surface, the midrib being prominent, round and yellow to reddish-brown in color. A few of the lateral veins leave the midrib at a fairly wide angle, 45 degrees, but the majority leave at the narrow angle, 25 to 30 degrees, and immediately curve upwards. Near the margin, the lateral veins anastomose to form a reticulate venation. The leaves are odorless and have slightly astringent taste. Hello, here I am back to continue reading my subject of the cat, a poison chewed in Yemen. Cat in Latin, K-H-A-T. I'm moving now to the microscopical features. The lamina, the upper epidermis, consists of a single layer of polygonal cells covered with a fairly thick, smooth cuticle. The outer walls of the cells are thickened with cellulose, but the anticlinal walls, which are somewhat sinuous, are not thickened to any great extent. No trichomes or stomata are present. The cells measure about 12 to 55 micron long, 10 to 36 micron wide, and 10 to 16 micron height. The appearance of the epidermal cells over the veins is similar to the remainder of the upper epidermal cells. The mesophyll is clearly differentiated into palisade and spongy mesophyll. The palisade consists of two rows of thin-walled cylindrical cells, those of the inner row being usually shorter and wider than those of the upper row. The palisade ratio is 2.75 to 3.8 apart from the chloroplasts. There are no distinctive cell inclusions in the upper row, but occasionally the cells of the lower row are enlarged and contain a cluster crystal of calcium oxalate. Frequently, the cells of the lower row are in groups of 2 or 3 with spaces between them. Sometimes a cell of the inner row is Y or funnel-shaped and probably functions as a collecting cell from the adjacent cells of the upper row. The spongy mesophyll, which consists chiefly of thin-walled, rounded to elongated cells, show 3 interesting features. 1. The cells adjacent to the palisade cells are often larger and Y-shaped, each being in contact with 2 or 3 palisade cells and probably function as collecting cells. This is reported by San, Zelen, and Habitel Landet, 1909. 2. The cells are arranged to show a pattern of regularly spaced large air spaces, lacunae. 3. The cells adjacent to the lower epidermis are more closely arranged in 2 or 3 rows, and except where there are stomata in the epidermis, show no large air spaces. Some of the cells of the mesophyll contain cluster crystal of calcium oxalate, measuring 12 to 32 micron in diameter. Other cells, particularly those near to the lower epidermis, contain slightly granular content which stain brown with dilute solution of iodine, greenish-black with solution of ferric chloride, and orange-red with the Sudan 3. Sometimes the contents are colored pale brown, and in such cases the color reaction with Sudan 3 is not obvious. These are the cells referred to in the British Pharmaceutical Codex as tanniferous cells. But it is probable that the contents are resinous, since they are not readily soluble in water but are soluble in ethanol, 90%. The lower epidermis consists of a single layer of polygonal cells, the walls of which are thickened in a similar manner to those of the upper epidermis. The anticlinical walls are only slightly sinuous. The epidermis is covered with a fairly thick, smooth cuticle. Some of the cells contain one or two small crystals of calcium oxalate, which are either clusters or conglomerates of few components. These crystals are smaller than those in the mesophyll and measure 4 to 8 micron in diameter. No trichomes are present, but there is a large number of anomocytic stomata surrounded by 3 or 4, occasionally 5 cells. The epidermal cells measure about 10 to 40 micron long, 8 to 20 micron wide, and 8 to 12 micron height. The stromal index is 10.4 to 14.2 to 18.8. The appearance of the lower epidermal cells over the veins differs from the remainder of the epidermis. There are no stomata, no cells containing crystals of calcium oxalate, and seen in surface view, the cells are irregularly rectangular in shape. When a clear piece of lamina is examined microscopically, cluster crystals of calcium oxalate are seen to accompany all the veins. The crystals measure 7 to 25 micron in diameter. Examination of the transverse section of the lamina through the lateral vein show them to have similar features to the mid-rib. The crystals of calcium oxalate being in the phloem parenchyma. The vein in islet number is 4 to 5, 1 to 7. Now I'm going to talk about the mid-rib. Both upper and lower epidermises are similar to those already described as covering the veins of the lamina, except that the cell walls are thicker and that over the lower portion of the midrib they gradually change in appearance to resemble the epidermises of the petiole. The palisade of the lamina is discontinuous over the midrib. Collenchyma occurs beneath the epidermis and in older leaves may be quite extensive, though in younger leaves may only constitute a few rows of cells. The remainder of the midrib cortex consists of large, rounded parenchymatous cells with small intercellular spaces. In the younger leaves, the cell walls are thin, but in the older leaves, they may be thickened with cellulose. Tanniferous cells are present, particularly near to the lower epidermis. No star sheath epidermis appears to be present. The meristele is arcuate in shape, but the actual shape of the xylem and the presence or absence of additional meristeles depends upon the position along the midrib at which the section is cut. The phloem consists of sieve, tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, and some small tanniferous cells. No fibers are present in the phloem, which is subtended by a crescent of pericyclic fibers. The extent of the development of this fibrous tissue depends upon the age of the leaf. The older leaves containing many fibers